wasn't until about 18 months later, I was at my first storage convention in Vancouver, and I started talking to some people about, my unmanned automated system that I was running. People were like, what? How did you do that? How does that work? Like, I went, oh, like everybody's not already doing this. And so it was at that point I realized I had developed Canada's first fully automated unmanned facility.
Welcome to the Ultimate Real Estate Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Guy Bouchard, and today we have a very special guest, good friend of mine and entrepreneur who has gone from hospitality through construction into disrupting the self-storage world and is now moving into the technology space in that very industry. And we're going to dive deep into a lot of those details. But what you think is aligned in life doesn't always wind up where you are. And talking about that path is exactly what we're here to do. And making those intentional pivots and knowing how to make those changes and where to invest your time and money is all part of what you're here to learn. So please introduce my buddy, Max, who is well respected by his family, his peers, and everybody he touches from such a wonderful soul that he is. Max, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Guy, man. Excited to catch up. It's been a little bit too long since we last connected here. So looking forward to this.
On that note, so we only met a few years ago, and where we met was actually at the self-storage conference in Toronto, which was, is it 2 years or are we going on 3 years now? Is it that long?
I almost thought it was 4 now. It was quite a while back, but
for sure 3, if not 4. And the funny thing about that is that I was at that as a developer that had a piece of land that was looking to develop self-storage on one of our properties. And what really shines in what you were doing in the business, and we'll get into that, but you were disrupting the industry by finding solutions that got people into a different approach of self-storage, which was utilizing land and technology and putting that together to get a speed to market solution that disrupted the typical building of buying, getting development permits, building a building that you then had to go through like a 4 to 7 year cycle of filling and getting it to a stabilized place, which was music to my ears back in the day. And I know a lot has changed for you in the meantime. But before we get into that, Max, give us a synopsis of who Max is. Let our viewers know just a little bit about who you are as a person. I know you're a family man. I know you got some special things happening there. So just let us know who you are, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small town boy from Penticton, BC, which is kind of funny that we met in Toronto, all the way on the other side of the country, and we're both BC bred. But that's that's home, and got a wife and 2 kids and a third on the way now. So family's growing. We're about to be outnumbered now, so which I know you know all too well.
That's right.
And I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Made a really crappy employee. So, I figured I better learn how to make money for myself, and kind of got my start in the entertainment industry. Had entertainment company that did pub crawls and golf tournaments. Then that turned into a nightclub, from the nightclub into a sports bar. Then from the sports bar, I ended up meeting a mentor of mine who partnered with me. He wanted to invest in my next vision. And so that turned into Barefoot Beach Resort, which is a 11-acre yurt and RV resort right on the shores of Skaha Lake. Beautiful property. And then from there, construction company. And during that period, I also got involved in the community a little bit more heavily. So I was the chairman of the board for the tourism industry. And then I became a city councillor for Penticton as well.
Which is quite the journey already as an entrepreneur, and I want to hear more about that before you finish your story. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from the construction industry led into self-storage, as you alluded to, and now from within the self-storage industry, I'm pivoting into prop tech and developing technology solutions for the industry. So it's been a wild ride. The dots do connect, I promise. Some which way they all they all align there. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been an interesting journey. I'm never bored, which is fantastic because I get bored easily. So it's been fun.
No, that's awesome, man. And it's good to know, right? It's good to know that journey and that transition, because, a lot of the clients that I serve and a lot of people we talk to in the industry, real estate real estate itself is an animal. Like it's a whole business on its own. Whether you're passive or you're active, it's a journey. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what cloth you're cut from. Everybody's kind of in it for the same thing, whether it's a side gig or a full-time gig. We're all trying to find our place in this world and doing something that we're passionate about while creating wealth and generating cash flow and passive income so that we can enjoy the ultimate real estate lifestyle, whatever that means to each other. And you've had quite the journey. That hospitality piece is important. I want to touch on that because it takes a special person to be successful in the hospitality space. And you have to be a people person, you have to be a connector, and you have to be someone with ambition and a work ethic that drives you through that business. And so, how many years of your life did you spend in that space to begin your journey?
Uh, 10 years on and off. So, I did a lot of blue collar stuff back in the day as well. Everything from oil rigs to diamond drilling, heavy equipment operating, all that kind of stuff. And I generally come back to Penticton in the summer times, and I was looking for the opportunity to make it full time, because it's Penticton's a tough market to, support a family and do all the other stuff here. So had to get into business for myself, and that's ultimately what led to it. But yeah, so it was probably, I'd say, 5 to 6 years of sort of part-time in and out, and then 4 years or so of being, a professional. Like, this was my living. So
And what wasn't working in hospitality that most people never saw, and what led to your transition out of that?
Um, it wasn't anything necessarily in the hospitality industry that wasn't working. It was just I got burnt out from it. Got to the point where I got really tired of dealing with all the drunks, and you know, start telling customers to kick rocks and get out of your face, kind of thing. And it's like, well, maybe it's time to transition out of this. And yeah, the timing of it was such that I met, as I alluded to earlier, my mentor, and he was one of the regulars at my sports bar, and we became friends. And he just called me up one day and he just said, "Look, Max," he's like, "I like you. I like your vision for Penticton. I want to invest in you." He's like, "So what are we going to build?"
Phenomenal.
His background, he's one of the titans of the construction industry. He built the fourth largest construction company in Canada, large infrastructure projects, the nuclear submarine jetty off the coast of Canada, CNRL and Fort McMurray, the water treatment plant for the city of Toronto. Like, we're talking major Canadian infrastructure projects, right? And so when a guy like that calls you up and says, "Hey, let's go build something," he's serious about it.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, so we actually looked at a bar acquisition, and I just decided I was done with that industry. I wanted to move on, and so I asked him if I could come back with a different idea, a different vision, and he graciously said, "Sure, I'll give you 2 weeks, come back and wow me." And so I came back with this vision for a beach resort built around the concept of yurts. And he's like, "All right," he's like, "I got one property. If you can secure this property," he's like, "I'll invest in you." And so I had to go out and I had to grind. I had to figure it out. The property had, it was really run down, beat up. It was an old trailer park that he was sick of looking at it and wanted to see it turned into something beautiful. But yeah, it was, there was a lot of complications. We had to navigate four different levels of government to get all the approvals on it. And, everything from federal government for tie-ins, because the sewer came from the airport, which was federally controlled, and the Indian band, the Ministry of Transportation, because it was on a highway, the
Holy
municipal
cow.
side. Like, it was a lot. But we powered through, got it done, and built this beautiful 11-acre property. There was 11 different businesses operating off of it, everything from CrossFit gym to a coffee shop, ice cream, restaurant, you name it. Like, it was a fantastic property. And yeah, turns out though, the drunks are a lot worse in a beach resort than they are in the nightclubs. Because at least in the nightclub, I could kick them out and be done with them. And in this case, they'd get kicked out and then they'd come back to me, and then I get to deal with them till, whatever hours of the morning. So wasn't the transition away from the old lifestyle quite as much as I thought it was going to be initially.
No, but it sounds like whether you realized it or not at the time, you transitioned pretty quickly into what we would consider land development, as far as all those approvals, and levels of government that you have to deal with, and the different moving parts of actually getting that set up. I mean, your specialty and your niche, which your partner obviously realized was your hospitality skills and ability to bring that. But you're talking land development, which of course we
Yeah,
know a lot better now, but that's quite the deep dive, and good on you for attracting that kind of person. Again, it speaks to your personality to have someone like that look at you and say, this is a guy that I want to do business with. And I'm sure you gained a ton of experience through that process on,
it was massive.
which I believe is still called, which is still known as the Barefoot Beach Resort, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still operating today. That was one of the ones that it's nice when you exit something and you know that it's got longevity and it continues past you. Fortunately, I left the nightclub and the sports bar, and that eventually they, changed hands and no longer exist and operate anymore. So it's nice that there's still some of the businesses that I was involved with still cranking out dollars in behind me here. So
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you spent time in people focused work, including counseling, as you mentioned, which I want to hear more about. And how did that shape how you see risk and decision making moving forward after you exited out of call it the hospitality phase of your career?
I mean, I don't know how it changed necessarily the risk side of things, but what was really valuable for me was it. As a small business owner, it's pretty easy to get your head buried in the sand, and your whole world becomes your business. Like that's your baby, it's your everything. It's kind of all consuming. And what the municipal politics was fantastic for was pulling your head out of the sand and getting that 30,000 foot overview of this is the whole community, and this is how things work, and this is actually how things get done. And all of that really was extremely valuable. And I'm fortunate enough that I was, fairly young and early in my career when I did it. I think I was 30, 33 at the time. It was 2014 anyways. 2014 to 2018 I served. And yeah, it was just a phenomenal opportunity to early in my career learn just the inner workings of just getting things done, pushing things through, how do approvals work, how to it's still all relationship based stuff. So a lot of the hospitality background does serve me well in that respect, which is also the same in real estate. I mean, business is a people game in general. Yeah, politics is no different in that sense as well.
Yeah, well, it's huge. And what comes to mind? I mean, when I've got all of my processes figured out for the things that work for me, and in buying, renovating apartment buildings and old assets, and transitioning into development when I was in the weeds seemed like a fairly straightforward step. But to your point, really zooming out when I'm talking to my clients and when I'm talking to people that I'm working with, it's one thing to just say you want to go and do something like, hey, I want to go buy a building, or I want to go restore a building, or I want to buy land and develop it, or I want to do whatever it is. 10 years ago, it would have been like, heck yeah, let's go do it. We'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
But the experience that I've gotten through the development, similar to what you did in counseling, is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's just zoom out a little bit and look at all of the components that are tied to the decision making, both in your life and the policies and the things that you're trying to achieve. And it gives you a much different perspective of helping you identify where do you actually want to be spending your time. Because I'm sure that after getting that experience and going through that process, you see things a lot differently on where you spend your time and your energy. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean it's eye opening. It again, your head's out of the sand. Now you've got a view of everything that goes on, and just how things function outside of your little world that you've narrowed your focus in on. So yeah, no, it was a great, powerful experience. Like I said, really happy I got to do that early on in the career, and still carry forward a lot of the lessons today. Everything from strategic planning stuff to you know just the familiarity with large budgets. We had a $70 million budget for a reasonably small community because we owned our own utility and stuff, and just the experience of working with high level players managing that kind of stuff was phenomenal. I really enjoyed governance, like working with a team of A-level professionals. Like the city staff that we worked with were phenomenal. And it's nice when, particularly coming from a small business background, where you sometimes feel like you need to micromanage and be looking over somebody's shoulder to make sure they're doing things right. Whereas these were all A-level players. Like you make a decision and you just know it was going to be executed phenomenally well, right? And that was a lot of fun. The
Being surrounded
politics
by
side of
confidence.
it, yeah, the politics side of it, a little less so, like shopping for your groceries, and all of a sudden somebody comes up and starts yelling at you about a decision you made in the chamber. It's like, a lot of people don't realize you can only represent a certain segment of the population, and
Yeah.
you know, they might be aligned with you for 99% of the time. Then you make that one decision that they're not, and they let you know about it. So that was a little much. And, you know, a lot of my businesses were heavily focused on social media and in
Yeah.
social media. So I had to be on social media all the time, but then you get the keyboard warriors that come at you from all angles, and it's a difficult thing actually. You know, I think that probably prevents a lot of great business leaders from getting more involved in their communities and whatnot, which is a shame because I think, you know, some people just don't want to deal with that aspect of it in their lives, and so yeah, it probably excludes more people than it should, and yeah, it's one of the unfortunate side effects of technology, but.
Yeah, no, it is. You know, a lot of people get the luxury of sitting on one side and having all their opinions, but they forget what it's really like on the other side of what it takes to actually get stuff done. So the politics and the processes, I can totally see the difference there, and the value of both. But I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think it does miss a lot of really valuable people that could be doing a lot of great things for our economy if we could just remove that people side of it, even just for a little bit. Unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in.
No, no, not the way it works, but yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, so you you stepped down as counselor, you didn't continue there, and then you is that when you entered into self-storage and started going down that direction? Tell us the next steps there.
Yeah, so I had the beach resort. That's what led to tourism. Tourism led to the city council, and partway through my term, think I'd exited completely from the beach resort at that point in time to focus on the construction company because we had started the construction company. It was actually so my partner that I referenced, my mentor, it was his son and I that ended up starting the construction company together. He was at the point where he wasn't on the tools anymore. He was just the guy writing the checks, and so he brought his son into the venture, and him and I hit it off, and so we became partners. He approached me and just said, "Look, if I don't have to go into an office and I can just stay on the tools." Say, this sounds like a great relationship. So, yeah, we formed the company there, started doing the construction gig, and then the self storage pivot happened. I think it was after the council term had ended. Yeah, it was. But we had this unused piece of land that we were using to store dump trucks and excavators on, and it was, you know, underutilized for the size of the property. And I just started looking at it and going, you know, like there's got to be a better way to make some money off of this site than what we're doing. And I kind of knew that self storage was in demand, but I didn't know anything about the industry, and so just sort of mapped out. Oh, I think I could fit this many doors, and ran a quick pro forma on it. I'm like, well, this looks, you know, really good. Like, I better run this by my accountant and make sure. And so I ran it by my accountant and I was like, "Am I out to lunch?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're way too conservative, man." He's like, "You need to bump those numbers." All right. Well, that was all the encouragement I needed. And so, yeah, I decided to start the storage development. But to the specifics of what I did differently, and how you were mentioning earlier that I did some disrupting things there, I didn't know what I didn't know about the industry. And one of the things I didn't know was, well, how do you get the right product mix, right? What if I build all 10 by 10s and the market wants 10 by 20s, or, you know, vice versa? And you can't really call your competitors up and say, "Hey, what should I build to compete with you?" So, you know, I kind of didn't know. And so I started looking for a way to mitigate that risk. And that's when I came across a product from a company called Boxwell, and it's essentially modular storage units. They come flat packed, 12 of them in a 40-foot shipping container. You drag them out, set them on the ground, 4 hinged walls, shoebox style lid, and you can configure doors in various configurations on them. So you can make it a single door, a 2-door, 3-door, 4-door. And I was like, well, this is perfect. I can throw these down. I can use my best estimate for product mix on half the site, see exactly what's going to rent, and I can tailor the subsequent phases directly to consumer demand, maximizing occupancy and so on. So long story short, that's what I did. And it ended up coming with a bunch of other benefits that I didn't anticipate, which was, you know, no building permits because you're not actually physically attaching anything to the ground. And so that actually led to the development from breaking ground to cash flow was 90 days,
Yeah, that's
which, as you
crazy.
know, is absolutely unheard of, right? And so that was kind of a turning point. And then from there, it came to the operations side of things, and I really didn't want to just be stuck sitting behind a desk waiting for people to walk through. It was a small enough site. I was like, does it make sense to hire a bunch of office staff to do this? Like, didn't really make sense. I was like, well, there's got to be tools on the market for automation and to set this up to run autonomously and unmanned. And this was, late 2019 when I was doing the development side of things. And started looking on the market, and there wasn't any cohesive system that existed on the market. So I kind of started, like, flipping through vendors and found this call center. And I was like, well, I need it to work with this property management software. And I need that to then tie in with this electronic smart lock that I had found. And I actually had to get the original APIs built for the hardware and the software to communicate together. And so I kind of pieced together this system and then launched it. Back then, the facility was called Smart Storage Center.
Yeah.
It's now been rebranded to My Storage Spot. But at that time, I didn't realize I had done anything novel. I just kind of pieced together a system that worked, right? And it wasn't until about 18 months later, I was at my first storage convention in Vancouver, and I started talking to some people about, my unmanned automated system that I was running. And people were like, what? How did you do that? How does that work? Like, I went, oh, like everybody's not already doing this. And so it was at that point I realized I had developed Canada's first fully automated unmanned facility. And
What
so
just as you're talking here, I'm trying to place time. What time frame was this? Like start that the years?
so I broke ground on the project in 2019, and we opened our doors in January of 2020.
Okay, all right. So about 5 years ago, you're kind of onto something, and
Yeah.
you're going down the path of autonomous storage facilities.
Yeah, and so because the facility went up so quickly, we ended up attracting. I ended up attracting some attention from some capital market guys. Long story short, got involved. We ended up raising $6.5 million to go build storage facilities. I consulted on there. Unfortunately, the some of the people that were involved in the project and I didn't see eye to eye over the long term, and I didn't really want to be associated, so I had to remove myself from that project. But I think 4 or 5 facilities have been developed using my model there. I've also consulted and built a couple other facilities outside of that. So yeah, it's I mean that unique business model really paid dividends over the next few years, and kind of launched my career in the self storage industry.
It absolutely did. And then, that's where our paths kind of crossed, which, yeah, I guess if you're talking 4 years ago, that would have been right around that probably 2022 timeframe. I think it
Yeah,
was right around there. So you said a couple of important things that we talk about all the time in real estate. Again, when I'm talking to my clients or anybody I'm doing business with, two very, very important factors is speed to result, right? Which is why I've done a lot of development or gone down the path over the past 5 years, but it really doesn't check that box. Waiting for permits, waiting for approvals, waiting to get somebody else's opinion, or talking to consultants, and how that stuff takes years. Takes
yeah,
years to put that together, let alone the construction, the development, and that's generational wealth. A lot of people today are looking for cash now. How do I get my returns now? Tangible results now. In your case, you found a path to get into something that didn't require permits and got that speed to cash while giving an asset that got those returns very quickly. In my business on apartment buildings, that's renovations. So
yeah,
instead of having to go and gut a place and have consultants and engineers and reports, you find places that have value add immediately. They already have a cash flow component, and they don't require approvals in most cases. Now, I'm not saying don't go pull permits when you need permits, but when you're putting paint on something or you're working with temporary structures, like really getting creative and finding that path is such a thing that I appreciate. And obviously why you took off and why, you were so successful in that space, but so important to be finding that path and being very, very clear about what path you're going down. So you're not spending years and years of your time or your money trying to get that result. The
yeah.
second thing I want to touch on and I want to ask you more about is partnerships. I mean, partnerships are a big thing, and no matter how good an opportunity is, the people you surround yourself with is number one. So talk to me a little bit about that scenario where if you could look back, you did something amazing, someone wanted to put some money in, you both saw the shiny object and the outcome that you were trying to get. But what would you have done differently in that scenario going into that to not have the result of you having to back away from that?
Probably I let the excitement of the opportunity get to me, and probably rushed through some elements of it that I shouldn't have. Um, and it's kind of funny. Like, they were a publicly traded company, and they wanted me to come on and start a storage division for them, which was a new vertical. They were in the pharmaceutical production industry, and they had a building that was being underutilized that they wanted to convert into storage, and then they saw my facility go up and how quickly it went up, and so they got excited about that, and probably should have been a red flag that, like, why is this pharmaceutical company pivoting into storage, and why are they willing to throw so much energy into that? And I was naive and excited about this opportunity. And
Sure.
this guy had a broker background, and, he was talking about all, how we're going to go out and raise capital. And that sounded exciting and fun and whatnot. And so, I went into it quicker than I should have. I probably should have had a lawyer review all the contracts more thoroughly and gotten that advice and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, yeah, long story short, I pushed ahead and forged into it. And yeah, the disconnect happened. That we raised the capital. I helped close the money. We raised it in 3.5 months. Like, it was phenomenal. Like, the trajectory, the speed to which we did this was amazing. And then the money came in, and I was like, okay, we got to start deploying it in this and this. And he was like, well, hold on. Once you spend it, it's gone. And I'm like, yeah, but that's why we got the money, right? Like, this is, this isn't our money. This was somebody else's money. And, eventually the money did start getting deployed, but I started getting really uneasy at how it was being kind of held back a bit. And so, yeah, long story short, I ended up paying a lot more to get the lawyers involved at the end, as opposed to getting them involved at the start. So, first thing I did is I called the investors and I said, I've got an uneasy feeling about this. I'm getting out of this. And I just want you guys to be aware. I've maintained the relationship with the brokerage firm that raised the capital for it. So I still communicate with them, but yeah, I
That's
had to
huge.
get legal involved and extract myself from the entire operation there. And like I said, eventually they did end up deploying the capital and building the facilities, and they used my model to do that and whatever else. But yeah, that was there was a lot of lessons learned in that particular venture.
Yeah, it's what comes to mind is one of the things that we always talk about is people that are looking to vet deals or making recommendations with investors capital or where they're investing into is track record. And it's not only the track record of the individuals, it's actually the track record of people working together, because you can have all of the pieces and all of the right people that know exactly what they're doing in their own individual role. But I've had challenges in raising capital or even recommending other people to invest into different scenarios, just because the track record of the team of doing a project and completing that and working together is so important. And lots of
Yeah,
people rush into that for exactly what you did, which you did nothing wrong. You were a young developer, you had a great idea, you had momentum, you had enthusiasm, you checked all the right boxes. That's why people invested in you.
yeah,
And but really that lesson of like who you're getting into bed with, and your morals and your the limits of what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, how you operate, like those don't truly get tested until you actually complete a project together with a team. And I'm sure that's probably what you're getting at, not without diving into more of the weeds. That's the moral of the story, right? It's just
yeah,
going through that business together in order to know who you are at the end of that, to know that you have the comfort moving forward. And it's one of the things that gets overlooked for all of us, because we all want the great outcome. Like you and I, we're optimists, we're visionaries, we're entrepreneurs. We only see the upside. We're like, look at all these amazing things we can do. like like what could
absolutely, yeah.
oh, like I'll bet this person they're good and this person can do that and everything's gonna work out. And then when a couple things don't, you're like, you take that step back and you're like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
I I see what I could do differently. But
Well,
I think
it's tough because, being a small town boy, your handshake's your bond kind of thing. And I've been the kind of guy that will do a deal on a handshake. And that worked out for me in the early days of my career. And then there came a point in my career where I realized, like, no, you need to, doesn't matter how well you think the people across the table, or,
totally.
whoever, you have to get things in writing. You have to document everything. Handshakes, or the memory of what was said over that handshake, can be different depending on who's sitting across from you. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tough lesson to learn in your career, because those ones can hurt a lot. And yeah, unfortunately I have learned that lesson, but at least now it's changed the way I do business moving forward. We'll put it that way, right?
And it does, and I totally respect and appreciate what you're saying. I mean, my last big handshake deal was almost bankrupted me. It was supposed to
Yeah.
change my life, and it was shining stars, and there was a couple of red flags that other people were bringing to my attention, and I did the same thing. I have all the pieces in place. I'll be able to protect anything that happens, and in the end, I didn't. The
Yeah.
handshake was only as good as what you thought was said, and so I feel you on it. So
Yeah.
okay, so after that, so where'd you go from there? So you're,
Yeah.
post
So
that after we met, and then you're kind of deep into kind of building your own thing. Carry on.
yeah, so then I was still fired up about the idea of pushing forward with this the developments in the same sort of fashion that I was going to do with a publicly traded company. And so, the idea was little hubs of like a hub and spoke business model of self storage development. So we'd pick a region that had strong demand, build sort of that hub facility, and then satellite facilities to operate around. So you get economies of scale and efficiency. And so ended up yeah, pushing out and met some partners out in Ontario actually that ended up being really great, solid partners, and they knew the Ontario market really well, and so diverted our attention over to there, and then started down the same process. Like, okay, we're going to raise money for doing a 5 facility cluster. Um, the long and short of that was I'd learned some lessons on the partnership side of things, and we had some potential partners that came and you know the ended up my neck hair kind of stood up at a certain point, and I realized some of the past learnings were maybe coming forward again. I was like, I should probably back out of this. And so it kind of, yeah, it was a lot of ups and downs during that time, trying to find partners with to raise the capital side of things, because that was not my background, my expertise. In the publicly traded company, I was relying on the CEO and his background and his brokerage network. And then out here, I was relying on this person's network and everything. And so, yeah, I just ended up backing out of that deal just because my gut told me it was the right thing to do. Decided to, you know what? Look, I'm shooting for the stars. I'm a big dreamer. I like moonshots, and I was going after big projects. So maybe I should just take a step back because I'm in a new world. Bring this all in house. I don't want to rely on outside third parties, but that means also that I'm not going out and raising $15 million on my first go around. let's
Yeah.
let's pull this back and let's start with a single site. We'll do one site and go. We did still have a strong network through my Ontario partners of development stage equity investors in the Toronto condo market.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, these people we chatted with them. They're highly interested and motivated in investing with us. So we're like, okay, great, let's get this set up. So I, redid the entire business model, the deal structure, kind of had to learn a whole lot of that side of the business that I wasn't familiar with yet. Built a really solid deal, got all together, took it to the lawyers. That took way longer than I would have liked.
How
And by
how
the time,
how long did it take?
I mean, the back and forth on it and everything, it was probably 5 or 6 months total. Like from
Okay.
when I kind of had, a fairly solid idea of the deal structure and how I wanted to do it till we actually had a limited partnership in hand and we were able to raise capital.
And was
And that
was that an offering memorandum, or was that for accredited investors only?
accredited only. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so just time shot here. You did your big capital raise in sort of that 21, 22 with the pharmaceutical company. You split from that. Then you went to create another limited partnership or capital raising structure to help, which was all with the intention of helping fund what you're doing, right? To get the autonomous self storage facilities on land, correct?
yeah, and in between there, I also built another self storage facility here in Penticton. I was
Right.
behind another development here, and then that all happened. So
So that partnership didn't work out. And then you changed gears to do things more in house on your own, which was creating your own partnership. And to your point, what
yeah,
I'm trying to keep my timeline correct, but also
yeah,
I know for people watching, this is a huge part of the business. Like this is a huge part of understanding what's involved when you try to scale. Everybody wants that big result. I'm no different. We're all
of
looking
course.
for how can we collapse time and take our knowledge to get the result that we know can pay us the dividends. But when you're either doing it your own and building slow, or you're working with other people. And
Yeah.
other people's either a partnership, a small group partnership, or to what you're talking about, which I'm very familiar with, is the fund management side of raising capital for the deals and putting together a partnership structure that's attractive, that works for you, that works for them, that's legal, that's got your T's crossed, I's dotted, that's compliant with securities to make sure. But then you're in a whole nother world. You're in a whole
Yeah.
nother world of that
Oh,
business of
it's a steep learning curve.
learning curve, and it's also time. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
even if you know what you're doing, it's a business on its own. You are
Yeah.
raising capital as a business to continue making sure that you have the ability to execute on the things that you're promising, because that's at the end of it, you're making a promise to deliver on a result. Your job as the operator is to deliver that result.
Yeah.
But that side of the business that keeps it fed is just, it's a massive part of it. And just hearing your stories just like giving me shivers, because it's like all of the things that I've gone through over the last 10 years has been that stress of capital raising and doing the work and getting the result and finding the deals and keeping it flowing and still coming up with the ideas. And it's not easy for anybody that's out there. I hope what they're really getting from this is really bringing it into perspective of what are you trying to accomplish and how are you intending to do it. And if it does involve other people and partners and investment capital, please don't underestimate the overwhelming amount of work and burden that comes with while trying to do your job and delivering.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, because this is so, we're not even near the end, we're not at the end yet, but it's so applicable in today's market when people are wondering where they're going to go and what they're going to do and how they're going to achieve the results, which we're going to talk more about. So sorry for interrupting there, but it's such a
All good, man.
point that I can feel your energy. When we talked last, like we were both on top of the world. Like
Yeah.
we like 4 years ago, we were in the flow, and I was in developments, and you had your ideas, and we've got all these things that should work. But then the reality of life sinks in, of like how much work and energy and how much time you're losing by actually doing the things that you're even trying to accomplish. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No, my
so
my my advice moving forward would be find a partner that's like an experienced capital manager. Like you're somebody like me that understands how to do the development side, and that part is second nature to you. Um, I now feel confident and comfortable. I can step into a boardroom with, high level financial guys and hold my own in the conversation. But that took 3.5 years of grinding to get myself to that level of proficiency that I can do that now. But yeah, it was a grind, and hindsight being 2020, I would have done a better job of vetting some of the earlier partners, and I would have found somebody that had that experience, that believed in the vision that I had as well, and just partnered with them right out of the gate and saved myself a lot of time, energy, and headache.
isn't that crazy that you can boil 5 years of busting your ass and putting everything at risk, and you can boil that down to like two simple things? like,
Yeah.
man, it's why I'm so passionate about the coaching that I do for this whole world. Like, because it's like collapse time, know what you're going after, and just don't make the same mistakes that everybody has already made, and just put yourself in a
Well, that's
position to succeed.
that's where mentorship is so powerful. Because I mean, rewind back a few years earlier than that, and I had found Gord, who mentored me, and
Nope.
I cut my chops doing the development side of things and learned a ton. And having somebody that's been through it all, that knows how to navigate the challenges, that's there to help steer you and guide you through. I mean, mentors, coaches, however you want to position them, like, they are invaluable. So that's another thing that I tell people now is, like, if you can get somebody that's been there before, whatever the cost is for them to come on and help you with it, it's probably worth it. Because
Yeah.
unless you've got years to burn and a bunch of capital that you want to torch on fire while you're figuring it out yourself, I mean, that's the reality. They will help fast track things, right? So had I had that same thing, trying to go into this venture, or that venture that I was in, it would have been probably a much different outcome. It would have been much faster. So to kind of wrap up where it was at, there was got launched the limited partnership, got that all finally got it all figured out, had a solid deal, actually got it vetted by some private equity guys that I knew. They came back, they're like, yeah, this is, you've done a great job here. I could speak the lingo now. I understood everything I was doing. Great, ready to roll. And that was right when the condo crash happened in Toronto, and that was basically our investor base. So we had people that had been waving checks at us the year before, and we're calling back up. We're like, all right, we're ready to go. Like, let's do this. And they're like, 90% of our portfolio just got wiped out. Like, we're not investing in anything. I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. So it was just
When was that, Max? Because we're sitting here on February 4th,
yeah.
2026.
So that would
What
have been this past spring. So that was kind of,
kidding?
sort of over, like we got the limited partnership together. I think I had all
About
the
a year
paperwork
ago.
finalized in March or so of last year. And so then we went into the capital raising, and like I went from having, probably over 1.5 million pre-committed, like from investors, like word of mouth, like, yes, like we didn't go and jump into this without doing our homework first. Like, do people want to invest in this? The answer was yes. So that's what gave us the confidence to then go and spend the money and set up the LP and do all that. But yeah, when we came back, I mean, timing is everything, right? And you can't fight the macro forces of the world. When that condo market tanked, it happened immediately,
Yep.
and that was our
Yep.
investor base, right? So I think I ground away for a solid 5 months or so. We had I'd raised, or I had commitments for, I want to say around 600K or so, something around there. But again, going back to, the gut check and whatever else, I was just feeling like, like this shouldn't be this hard right now based on how much momentum we had the year prior. And so
Yeah.
my morals didn't allow me to take any capital. I just said, you know what, I'm not going to take your money until I'm absolutely certain that this is going to move forward, because I didn't want that. So I was kind of on the fence by this past summer, if I was going to move forward with it or not. And then the market that we were looking at for our development, another big player moved in and bought a site there. And at that point I went, okay, a major institutional player is now entering the market that we were looking at. That was a strong, great opportunity. And the capital, like, we needed to raise almost $4 million, and it was a grind to get to that 600K. And I was just going, I could be at this for another couple of years, or I take people's money, and then, you're responsible for that money. The second you've got their money, like, that's not your capital, right? That's somebody else's capital, and you owe them a return on that investment that they're making with you, right? So that's something that, I took very seriously. So I'm glad I followed my instinct and didn't take the money, because that's how people lose their shirts and whatever, right? So yeah, ground away at that for 5 months or so, and then just made the difficult decision, because I'd invested a lot of capital and time and effort and energy into it. Just said it's not the right time for this. And thankfully, being the never-ending entrepreneur, I had another egg in the basket. So it
Yeah.
was
Would you
the timing wise kind of worked for me to be able to pivot towards that. But I just said, okay, I'm gonna step back from this. So I shut down the LP and pivoted into the other company.
Yeah, and that's and I came into this meeting talking with you, knowing you very well, but not knowing what had just sort of transpired here in call it 6 month period, 6 to 12 month period. So it's my heart goes out to you for the time and energy and the effort, but I strongly commend you for making the tough decision that you needed to make, because I think it's gotten a lot worse for being able to raise capital. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and for you to have the morals to know that you didn't want to take on that responsibility with the uncertainty and the risk, it speaks volumes to who you are, Max, and that's going
Well,
to pay
it's
dividends when things turn around.
it's tough when you're invested. I was 6 figures into the deal, and man, when the checks were there and people are saying, yeah, we'll give you the money, to know, like, it's just something not right about it. I can't morally do this, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's tough, when you're, and
100%.
to know that then, saying no to that is walking away, and walking away from a big investment that you've made. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, again, it's the market, it's timing, there's a whole lot of factors, and you got to trust your gut and stay true to your own ethics and morals. And a lot of people don't do that, and I think they pay for it in the long run. So I'm happy to say I'll I'll take the loss on that one. And, it's only my bank account that got affected there. So that's good. But, yeah, it's tough. No,
It's a
no easy
tough.
way to put it. It doesn't all, not every deal works out, and not every story is a glory story.
No, that's for sure. And we always tend to talk about the wins, and people usually only see the results once they've come, but what they don't see are the battle scars. And I've been in the projects that I've ran and I've raised capital for that didn't have an outcome, that I was the only one that lost. And that those were ones that we got committed to years ago and got caught in the downturn of developments. And that is the risk of investing, and it's a
Yeah,
part of this business. But man, when you start to wear that badge and you're responsible for other people's money and the result that you're promising,
big
it takes
responsibility.
big responsibility, and it takes a strong leader to weather through that. And I know that you've set the stage for a lot of good things in the future for that business plan, because it's not over. But I want to know where you transitioned into the other thing that you were working on in the background, which is where you're at now. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I talked about how I built a fully automated facility, and one of the key components to that operation was the smart entry system. And so, what a smart entry system is, for those that aren't familiar, it's electronic smart locks that are app activated. So you have a Bluetooth app on your phone that then connects directly to the gate opener and then to the lock on the unit, so that you don't need to have physical keys to access the unit anymore. It's not the old fashioned lock or a puck lock or a cylinder lock or anything like that. It's just app controlled. And so that really allows for the modernization of the facility and that unmanned remote operation of the facility, because the system, if somebody's late paying their bill, the system automatically locks them out. They go online, they pay their bill, they automatically get reinstated access. You don't have that friction of needing to go down and send somebody to overlock the unit. And so if you're an unmanned facility, you can imagine, first of the month, maybe 15 people are late. Well, and then day two, one person pays. Well, you got to go down and unlock that one. And then day three, two more people pay. And then day 10, another person, and so it's a lot of back and forth, and really makes it, the automation side, not a reality. So what this technology did was allow that. Now, I was an early adopter of the technology. As I said, this was kind of brand new at the time. And so with any brand new technology, the early adopters generally find the quirks.
Yep. Right.
And so I had a lot of reliability issues with the product. And, if you're trying to run an unmanned facility and, you're getting phone calls in the middle of your dinner saying, hey, I just drove in from out of town and I can't get into my unit. The battery's dead, or the lock's bricked, or whatever, that causes a lot of problem. And so, I was giving out a lot of concessions and trying to keep people happy that were having negative experiences. And so, yeah, I finally got to the point where, I was dealing with the company. I'm like, look, can you just fix these issues? Here's what's going on. And worked my way all, it was a big publicly traded company, worked my way up all the way up to the president of the company knew me by name, was on phone calls with the CTO, and just kept getting the runaround. Like, it just was like, oh yeah, you're an isolated case, this and that. But then I'd go out in the industry and I'd talk to more people, and they're like, oh, we're all having the same issues with them. Right. And so eventually enough was enough. I work in an office here that has a bunch of other businesses in it. And one of them is a longtime friend of mine, who's in the oil and gas industry. And yeah, we got to chatting one day, and I'm like, do you think you can help me build a lock? I mean, it can't be that hard. It's got to open and close reliably. Tell me before the battery dies. And he's like, yeah, I think we can do that. So he had developed a company years ago, that they built frac pump controllers.
Okay.
So their technology had to live on the side of a 2,500 horsepower vibrating engine for 50 years of uptime without failure. So when he said, yeah, I think we can help you build a lock, like, these guys knew what they were doing.
Yeah. No.
And so, yeah, I ended up partnering with these industrial automation specialists from that industry. And we started on the process of developing our own smart lock. And yeah, so right around the time that the LP was kind of coming to an end, it was right at the time where we were starting to see the product development getting close to being finalized. And so I decided I was going to go full time into Blue Lock, which is the name of the company that we've created. And so, yeah, long story short, this is the industry's newest smart lock. And so
Oh,
it's
that is rad.
this connects to an app on your mobile phone device, and that's how tenants get in and out of the facilities. And so
Wicked.
we're we're just about to install them into my facility now, my current facility, for the first level of testing. We've got a bunch of national partners that have committed to beta testing the product with us, and really excited to
No.
sidestep into the prop tech industry now. So
So what's the name of that company?
it's called Blue Lock,
Blue Lock.
BLULOK.
Okay.
And
Sweet.
so it's it's been another fun learning curve.
You're
I went
disrupting the
from
industry in another way.
doing modular self-storage facilities, building and consulting on those, to now I'm helping design provisioning layers for Bluetooth mesh networks, all kinds of other stuff, understanding Faraday cages and how that affects signal attenuation and all kinds of stuff like that. Like it's been a very interesting ride, and really excited to launch this company now.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. It opens up a whole nother discussion about what's going on in the world with AI, and because we've got software angles to this as well, and everything else, and
Yeah.
it's been very, very interesting and very fulfilling project. So it's also quite different
I
being in a product company as opposed to like a service based company. The self storage industry, or the bar industry, or hospitality industry, like those are all service based businesses for the most part.
yeah.
And this is it's a whole different world.
Yeah, it's crazy, and and honestly, you go from this small lens focus of doing one-off developments and kind of building these things where you find a solution that impacts everyone globally. So now you start to implement that into, I mean, the sky's the limit on that, and you start
Yeah.
to pair that up with what is actually happening in the market with the AI. And I think there's a blessing in disguise in every decision that we make, and I think you've got a pretty darn good one in your hands right now, where your decision to not spend time on wasn't working on what wasn't working has now transitioned you into being full on into something that obviously is. It's going to have a place in every market.
Yeah, it's exciting. There's only five other or six other smart lock manufacturers for the self storage industry.
Yeah.
We've seen maybe 10% of facilities have adopted this technology. I think it's only a matter of time before the other 90% do. Once a new technology is introduced, technology never goes backwards, right? It's always marching forward. We've got some interesting things that we're doing with the product, because I come from an operator background, because I've run facilities, and I uniquely understand how to run fully automated unmanned facilities. I had a lot of demands for the product that I think a lot of the existing suppliers into the industry didn't have, because they didn't come from this industry. Like, some of them came from producing locks for the hotel industry, or the one is a door manufacturer, and they I believe they acquired the company that produces the technology. So I'm coming with an intrinsic understanding of this is what the industry needs and why it needs it, and so
Yeah.
that's given us a bit of a competitive advantage, I think.
No kidding.
So it all started with the reliability of the product, because knowing that if you're running an automated unmanned facility, reliability has to be paramount. There's nothing more important than that. And so it was kind of exciting. I found all the data on the competitors, and probably the top competitor in the industry had performed 100,000 unit or 100,000 cycle test on their lock, and they're like, yeah, last 100,000 cycles, not a fault, whatever. And I was like, that sounds awesome. We need to blow that out of the water. And so we started when we started cycle testing this lock. We got to, I think we were up around 200,000. I said, that's it. We're live streaming this. I'm putting this on the internet. I'm going to tell everybody we're going for 1 million. And the engineers are just like, they're panicking. They're like, you never live stream something like this. Like, you're crazy. But I'm like, nope, we're doing it. And it was right before we were heading out to the Toronto CSSA convention again.
Yeah.
And like, no, we're doing this. And finally convinced the team, and they let me live stream this. And we got to 1.2 million cycles without a single fault before the team finally just said, we're unplugging this thing because we're tired of listening to it clacking in the back. It's been going for weeks in the back. So that's the equivalent of 500 years of uptime without a single fault at 6 cycles a day. So Yeah, we really blew the
Unbelievable.
doors off of the target of being the most reliable product on the market, which I'm quite excited about that. Um, and then on the software side, there's some really unique things that we're doing now, and that's a whole nother area. I mean, we're and again, coming back to my experience in the industry, I've got this vision to build this into a vertically integrated company where we also have, so we've got Blue Lock as the hardware layer, and then we've got the intelligence layer, which is we're calling it Blue AI, which is basically advanced telemetry synthesization. So we take all the data that we're getting from the hardware, and then we have the AI team actually analyze that data and then turn it back into actionable insights that we can then deliver back to the operator to actually help them raise revenue. So rather than a traditional cost center, which most smart entry systems in the self storage are, they're sort of a necessary evil in the space. You have to have some sort of access control. It's going to cost you money, but there's no getting around it. Well, we want to take that cost, that expense center, and turn it into a revenue center for the operators. So
Right.
with the team, we've got, I mentioned the frac pump controller. We've got AI engineers that are actually analyzing millions of parameters of data across a frac fleet of over 200 frac trucks, and they're taking all this data and they're doing predictive analytics and analysis on all of that, and doing it in the oil and gas industry, which is multi-billion-dollar high stakes industry, and we're taking that level of proficiency and understanding and applying it to the self storage industry. And so I'm really excited about that opportunity. And then beyond that, down the road on our map would be then a new software layer that people can interact with. And I think, I think there's some big changes coming to the way software is implemented in the world as well. And this is all kind of ties back to that AI stuff.
Yeah, that's massive, man. And I love your pivot. And I think talking about investments with what we usually know, hard assets, it's a great place to put your cash flow. It's a great place to put your money. It's gonna, that's going to perform over time. But I think it brings a lot of validity to the conversation about strategically investing into the right companies right now, because companies are kind of becoming the new hard assets, the companies of the future with the way that things are changing. Now that's a totally different venture than what we're used to talking about. It's obviously not a hard asset, but they are becoming the assets, the future assets of the world. And it's something that people better be paying attention to, maybe just starting to put a little bit of their cash flow away in some of these companies that are changing, and because it's changing so fast. And it brings me to my question: like, are you open to investors? Are you taking investment capital right now? Like, is this an early startup phase where we can get in at ground level, or what?
Well, actually, I mean, there is a chance that we're going to be opening up investment round, but we've got a very strategic investor base that we want to go after. My end goal, and I don't know, I might be opening the kimono a little bit, I guess, but I want to strategically target portfolio owners
Yeah, big time.
because then I can generate a flywheel effect. If I can get them to personally invest into the company, and then
Yeah,
their portfolio ends up adopting the product,
of course.
then it raises the value of our company. It also gets us product market fit in the marketplace, which then, it creates this flywheel effect.
Of
And so
course.
we're strategically going after, guys that have 10 to, up to 200 facilities, that kind of strategic investor, because then, yeah, that
Well,
deployment
it
really moves the
obviously
needle.
increases the value of their portfolio because it's streamlining their expenses and their operations and everything. That's an obvious approach, but a very well placed one for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
so people so you're when I was initially planning this discussion, it was around how people could look at investing into self storage from a creative way that helped them get speed to market quickly. And your old model, or your existing model you're just not doing right now, was
yeah.
utilizing land to build these autonomous self storage facilities, getting speed to market. So two things I want to ask you. The first part is, what are you currently doing with that? And what is your role in that area? If there was somebody that was watching this that wanted to utilize land or go down that path. And the second thing to that is, besides that, where do you see the self storage world going or changing so that people can kind of get with the time? So, two loaded questions,
Yeah.
but very important.
Yeah, so I mean, I've shelved the LP for now. I mean, I've got all the documents. If the market turns around, I've got a lot of sunk costs there. I'd love to pull it out, dust it off, and then go forward with that plan. The big thing about the Canadian self-storage industry is it's massively underserved versus US. We're at 2.5, 3 square feet per capita versus 9 square feet per capita in the US. But our usage is catching up, and we're largely underserved in smaller markets. The primary markets are well served by the big players, but the secondary, tertiary markets of Canada are really an opportunity for any developer, anybody that's looking at getting into the space. So the business model itself is very viable. I think just the timing of using other people's capital to go out and build these. I had a view of building 30 to 50 of these over the next 5 years, but that takes a lot of capital. The self-storage is not a cheap thing to get into. So for the time being, while capital is afraid, we'll put it, that project's shelved, and like I said, love to dust it off in the future. But I am still, I'm still heavily involved in the industry. I'm still talking to people all the time. I actually had a phone call just earlier today with a fellow that's interested in developing a facility using my modular model. And so, yeah, I'm still doing a little bit of consulting on the side and helping with procurement of the units. I've got a great supply chain of getting these things into Canada. And so, yeah, really happy to help people that are looking at it and interested in making those investments. Because it's an affordable, low risk. We always look for asymmetrical risk in anything that we're doing. And because you can do this phased development and sort of just add more units as you start to fill up the existing ones, it actually becomes a very asymmetrical risk profile to do these developments. So yeah, it's still a great opportunity. The market is still underserved. It's just hard to access capital right now. But if you already own the land, or you have investors already, you've got access to capital in whatever fashion, it's still a phenomenal opportunity. And the self-storage industry, self-storage has outperformed every other real estate asset class, period, full stop, end of sentence, right? It is the most profitable and stable real estate class that has existed. And so, we learned that kind of after 2008, when everything else was crashing, and we had just finally had third-party management had come in. So you now had proper data on the performance of it. It was this mom and pop industry that wasn't really recorded prior to that. And then I think it was around 2005 when the first third-party managements came into effect, and then the REITs were able to invest, and real institutional capital started flowing into the industry at that point. And then we started getting the data. 2008 hit, outperforms everything. COVID hits, outperforms everything, right? Everything else is crashing and burning, and self-storage is actually seeing spikes at times because of this. Right. Because when it's a non-correlated asset class. So when everything else is seeing times of trouble, that's when people turn to storage, right? Life's hitting them hard. They're seeing downturns and negative effects, whatever they are. Well, what do? You got to downsize your house. A loved one passes, or whatever life circumstances happen, you turn to storage. And so it's a very, very stable asset class. And then the other side of it is you've got hundreds of tenants. $2 million might buy you a fourplex in many markets in Canada, and you've got 4 tenants. If one person moves out, you've just lost 25% of your revenue overnight. Well, that same $2 million will get you a couple hundred doors in storage. And if one person moves out, that's 50 basis points. It hardly moves the needle, right? And so that's the analogy I give to people for why is this such a stable, solid asset class? Well, you've got commercial tenants, residential tenants, you've got people that are moving houses, you've got people that are just need extra space, they're storing toys. Like everybody's circumstance is different, and that creates a very stable cash flow. So, going back to my story, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster as we discussed here over the last 5 years, but I've had the stability of my revenue from my investment into this asset class, right? My one operating facility is just provided for my family right through all that turmoil. It's allowed me to take the big hits, or, the big swings at the various projects and pursue my passions and my dreams, because I had that stable cash flow coming in from that asset, right? So, strongly encourage people to look at the self-storage space, to get involved if they can. It's expensive. It's it can be difficult, but it's worth it. It is ultimately.
Talk about those numbers a bit, because when we, off the top of my head, when we were talking, 5 acres was kind of the sweet spot. But for somebody who's got $1 to $2 million to throw around at something like this, what would that typically do from a project, or sorry, a size of property, and then capital investment for getting an operation set up?
Yeah, if you're going to use like my business model, the modular business model, you're probably looking at about $1 million an acre to do the development. Depending on your skills and your background, your connections, you might be able to get that number down as low as 750. But it's very market dependent and economy driven. So if people are looking for work, you probably get better deals on the earth moving and this and that. But generally speaking, that's around the cost to get in on it, and that's
Is
probably
that
gonna net
including
you.
land?
What's that?
Is that including land or just development?
No, that would be the development side of it. Yeah,
Okay,
the
so that's
land. I
like
mean,
you
there's too
are,
many variables for me to
yeah,
say what it would cost with the land. Like, are you in Saskatchewan or are you in downtown Vancouver? Right. Like,
of course.
the other thing about this model is it's not suited for those primary markets because land cost is too
That's right.
exorbitant. You have to go vertical in those markets. This is smaller secondary, tertiary markets. That's where it's a great fit for it. Um,
Let me rephrase that question because I knew the land wasn't a component of it. I don't know why I asked that. What I meant to ask was, what is the sweet spot of price per acre that you could pair with that development cost that you kind of know would just be like on the surface? That's something I can bring to Max to start talking more.
Yeah, I'd say under 500,000 an acre. It comes down to whatever the prevalent rates are in that local market for self storage. So ideally, we look for the largest delta between the land cost and the rental rates.
Of course.
That's if you can just look at a map and say, okay, where do you want to develop? Like you're not committed to one area because you live there, or you own property there, or whatever. That's what we look for. We want to see migration trends. We want to see all those same positive influences that you would look for in any development. And then we look at the land cost. If all those boxes are ticked, then we go, okay, what's that delta between the land cost and the rental rate? We want the dirt as cheap as possible and the rental rates to be as high as possible. Because at the end of the day, as you know, in the development world, nobody cares what you paid for the land. They care about, in commercial development anyways, they care about the cash flow of the asset after. And that's
Of course.
how facilities are valued. They're valued on your net operating income, which is basically the free cash flow of the business, right? So yeah, the cheaper you can get the land for and the higher the rental rates, the more your facility will be valued at the end of it and the more lift you get.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, back to the coaching and the consulting, like people throwing money at something just because you think it's a good idea is gambling like anything else. Your money's got to get a return. And it amazes me how many people are investing their money without understanding how the return works. Like how is their money working for them? How much are they investing versus how much they're making? And then they wonder after 5 years of investing, like, hey, why haven't I gotten to where I want to be? Well, did you ever think to check the numbers? Everything you're saying sounds amazing, but you could go pay $2 million an acre and then go implement Max business, and at the end of it, be like, hey, I thought he said this was awesome. Like, what the heck? Just like any
Yeah,
asset class out there. But that's not the point of this. It's just that's a general sense. Anybody that's watching this and is looking at tertiary areas or tertiary markets or has some land, if you have the land, you can kind of contribute it to do the work and kind of get it done. But if you're looking for it, which a lot of people are, what is the speed to market that can get me into return on capital the quickest? Buying a 1 to 5 acre piece of land at approximately $500,000 per acre with the capital of about $1 million per acre to develop, which, as you mentioned before, doesn't all have to be at once. It can be staged and
yeah,
sort of built out as you go. That's a pretty good sense. And, I'm not going to talk about returns because, again, that's all detailed based on what you put into it. But that gives our viewers a pretty good sense of something that they could consider that is some low hanging fruit to get speed to market and get their cash in their pocket as quick as possible, which is why we're talking, because I love the value of that. I love trying to get people to understand different ways that they could be investing, because the typical way of putting your money in and setting it, forgetting it for 20 years, like people are over that. If you
yeah,
have nothing but money that you don't mind waiting generations to get your return back and you're handing it down to your kids, good on you. That's not why we're talking. We're talking because people want to know how to make money, how to do it safely, how to protect themselves from the downside, which you and I have obviously gone through a lot, and we have a lot more to go through. We're not through. Like to think we're not even halfway to the end of it, right? And we're going to keep doing this for a long time. So it's just to
absolutely.
help other people understand that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a million ways to invest your capital. Real estate is a phenomenal one, but yeah, you do have to be careful because there's lot of deals that don't pencil out. There's whole industries around guys that just analyze deals, and a lot of deals aren't penciling these days. So yeah, do your homework, do your due diligence, understand, dive in, get to know the industry that you're investing in, whether that's multifamily or self-storage or whatever. You have to understand the numbers and what drives them, and whether projections are real or not. That's one of the biggest things. I'm sure you've heard the saying, but no one's ever seen a pro forma that shows that it loses money, right? So it's yeah,
You're bang on.
everybody thinks that their deal is the best one, but so it's on you as the investor to make sure that you've done your homework and that you understand the numbers, and that they're believable and grounded in realism, right? So
Yeah.
go for experienced operators, people that have done this before. Look at their track record and that kind of thing. Yeah, those are the important things when it comes to the investing side.
No, I love it, man. And it's, I look for clients that are looking for guidance, that are looking to go down the path that I'm looking at, but I'm no different than anybody else out there. If I'm going to do something in the self-storage space, I'm coming to a guy like you. It's like, I'm happy to pay you to do the job that you have already done and learn with all the lessons you've already learned. I don't need to go through that shit.
Yeah.
I want to know that I'm surrounded by people that have done it before, that understand how it really works from an operational level, so that you can extrapolate that into making sure that you're making a good investment and know what you're getting into. So I love that, man.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so what are you doing? What's you're working on your technology? We're kind of at the end of our hour here, if you will. But on the personal side, what's Max up to? I mean, you have a new baby on the way. You're an adventurous kind of guy. You like to have a lot of fun. I know that you're working on the business, and I'm gonna keep bugging you to get some money invested in your company. So hopefully I'm one of those strategic investors and I can point some people at you. But what's your plan here over the next couple years?
Focus on family and rolling out the new venture. I mean, that's really it. I've narrowed my focus. Trying to turn off all the shiny object syndrome that us entrepreneurs can get. On the family side, I think I owe you a bit of a thank you, because when I came out and visited you, and the madness of your household and all the kids running around, and I'm just like, what drove you to want 5 children? And your answer has really it instilled itself into my head. And you're like, you know what? You said two things. And you said, the world needs more good people in it, and I'm going to bring those good people into this world. That was one thing you said. And then the second thing that you said was, and at the end of my days, when I'm laying on my deathbed, I want to be surrounded by people that truly love me and care about me. And what better thing than family to be around me? And it was like, hit
I
me in the
love
feels, man.
I love that. And I really appreciate you saying that, Max. But you being in my home speaks volumes to how much I appreciate you as a person, and friends and family alike. I really appreciate that, and I'm super happy for your family. I only have 4 kids, but I did want 5,
Oh,
because
that's
I
right. Yeah, it was that
wanted,
you wanted.
just, just for clarification of
Yeah.
everyone watching, right? It feels like 5 when you're here, but your family is super lucky to have you, and you're super lucky to have your family, man. You're a real gem, and like I said, having you in my home speaks volumes. The only people that are in my home are people that I love. So I do love you, man. I love everything that you're doing, and you're going through the same ups and downs that the rest of the world is going through. And I know you're already a shining star, and you're gonna do wonders. So I'm really glad to have caught up, and to get to know what's going on in your world. And I know a lot of people that have watched this have gotten a lot of value out of everything you've spoken about today. So I just want to thank you very much for that. And
Awesome.
for all you viewers out there, this is just more lessons about how you can approach your world in a different way, look at things through a different lens, get the perspective of another entrepreneur that is out there doing his thing, carving a path in his world, trying to do the same thing, which is generate cash flow, generate wealth, and create the ability to buy back time so we can all live the ultimate real estate lifestyle, regardless of what that means to you. So I hope that you've all enjoyed this. And Max, want to thank you again. Appreciate it very much. And everybody, stay tuned. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks, Guy. That was a lot of fun.
Take care, man.
Cheers.